everybody, and welcome to Behind the Scenes, a podcast where we talk about the intersection between art, culture, and big ideas. I'm your host, Sean Malone, creative director for the Foundation for Economic Education and creator of Out of Frame, a video series on YouTube where we explore many of the same themes. Here in studio today with Paul Nelson, our head of social media and senior marketing manager, and of course, Jennifer Mofasanti, who is director of communications at the Libertas Institute in Utah. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
We watched a movie this week. We'll get into it in a minute. I don't have a whole lot of preamble for this episode, so I think we can probably just kind of jump right into this. But we watched, and I was glad that it came out on HBO Max and theaters at the same time.
Did it come out in theaters?
I think it did. Yeah. You could see
the box office numbers. I wonder this is how bad those are.
Maybe I should look it up. We watched Reminiscence, starring Tandy Newton, Rebecca Ferguson, and of course Hugh Jackman. Written and directed by Lisa Joy, who I guess worked on. Help me out here.
Westworld.
That's what I'm looking for. And also, turns out, looking at her IMDb. Started her writing career on a show called Pushing Daisies, which is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. Fabulous, fairly short-lived show that I would highly recommend. But in any case, we watched Reminiscence, and it's actually one of these things where I was really glad to have a home theater that's really nice because I was able to just quietly enjoy my experience in terms of watching a movie on the big screen in my own home. But sadly, the movie did not live up to my the theatrical experience I was looking for. We will get into that in a little bit. Prior to that, but just before we get into this a little bit, I guess I just wanted to see, Jen, you got a dog.
Yes.
And that is big news.
That is very big news.
I think your boys have never had any kind of you boys had like a hamster or something at one point. I don't remember what your, didn't you guys have?
We've had dogs before.
Oh, you did? Well, you had Pinsky, of course, but.
We had Pinsky.
Yeah.
And then before that, we had Freya. So we had both of those dogs, by the way, listeners, were greyhounds. We would rescue ex-racer greyhounds, and there was a rescue pretty close to where we lived outside of Atlanta, and so that was great. We loved them a lot, and unfortunately our most recent dog, until very, very recently, passed away a couple of years ago, and by the time we felt that we were ready emotionally to get another pet, we were staring down the barrels of a cross-country move, right?
Yeah.
And it's not cool to get a dog and dramatically change its life and then put it in a car for a week and move it across the country. Like, that's not fun for anyone.
Probably not.
So we've been holding off, but this past weekend, we adopted a sweet little girl. And her name is Scotty, and she is fantastic. We're so tickled to have her around.
We none of the viewers will have seen this. You'll all miss this, but at one point earlier today, Jen left her seat for a moment, and the dog decided to jump up and investigate the camera on this end. So it
was pretty adorable.
It's pretty adorable, actually. So y'all are probably it's probably a shame that you guys missed that, but it was pretty great. She seems very, very cute. So that is pretty exciting.
She is adorable, and she's good with the boys, and she's very smart. And yeah, we're really enjoying her.
There's a so my dog is Jen's very familiar with my dog, but he is a little Shiba Inu, and he's a very good boy. We have our neighbors on one side have two female dogs, which he is very excited about from the other side of the fence all the time. But now the neighbor on our other side had a couple months ago got a puppy, a Rottweiler puppy. And this puppy already, like at the beginning, was like about the size of Tadashi. He was about 25 pounds. And this puppy was probably only like a hair smaller than he was. This puppy's adorable, first of all, and desperately wants to get through the fence so that they can play together in one single yard. So he kept jamming his head through the fence, but then because he's a Rottweiler, he's growing so fast that like about a week into him trying to jam his head through the fence, he started getting his head stuck in the fence because he's like so big. So I would go out there and like pet him and stuff, and he's just desperately trying to claw his way through the fence. And finally, I'm like, buddy, you can't jam your head through here anymore. But now he is, I want to say he is this Rottweiler puppy. It's only a few months old at this point. Is probably 35 pounds, maybe 40 pounds. Like he's going to be a big boy. And I'm waiting for the day.
Rotties are big boys.
Oh yeah. I'm waiting for the day for this still puppy to just literally jump the fence to get into the yard and hang out with my dog because, boy, they really want that to happen, and I would like that to happen as well. But I've told our neighbor, like, you should just hoist him over the side, just let him in there, it'll be totally fine. But we'll see. It's been pretty adorable though. But yeah, dogs are good, man.
Dogs are good.
Anyway, we should talk about Reminiscence. It's kind of stalling a little bit because Reminiscence is just not good. Yeah. Just not good. And it's a terrible preview to have to start with, but basically, if you've seen the trailer, you've basically seen the story of the movie. Hugh Jackman works as a technician, expert, whatever, memory extractor of some kind who I guess used to work for the military, and it's technology that was developed for the military and developed for interrogations to see, what basically peer into people's memories to get the truth out of them, which, that scans, whatever. But Hugh Jackman now works privately as essentially a nostalgia generator. He people come in, pay him to re-experience and relive, their best memories, lost loves, their children that have grown up or maybe died or whatever. Like, that's basically like his job. And one day, a woman played by Rebecca Ferguson comes in for reasons. Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson fall in love, and then she disappears. And then Hugh Jackman spends the rest of the movie, well, a lot of this is out of order chronologically, but essentially, Hugh Jackman spends the rest of his life trying to track her down and see what happened to her, and and also spends a lot of his own time reminiscing on their own, his own memories of their relationship. So that's pretty much the gist of the story. It is a little bit of a noir kind of a vibe. There's some kind of cool shots in the movie. There's some nice lighting and camera work periodically. It is not consistent, unfortunately. But it's set in some kind of like future state Miami that is half submerged in water, even though everybody still lives in all of the same downtown
because
buildings.
Of course.
Because global warming. And also a war of some kind. A war because of global warming. Yeah, there's a lot of things in this movie that come down to for reasons. And I think that's where it kind of goes awry. But Paul, I'm going to kick it to you, who probably has the most direct anger about this movie. And we teased this last episode as well. So take it away, Paul.
So I try to find silver linings if I don't like something, because there's always something that, I appreciate the shot, the craft that went into this, all of that, and I can't with this movie. The premise is bad, the lore is bad, the acting is bad. I don't care about the characters. The story makes no sense, and there's really no weight to it. And I watched this at home maybe I would have had a better experience watching this in a theater, but I had to take off my Apple Watch and put my phone out of my pocket and put it on my desk across the room, or I would have kept looking at it because this movie just could not keep my attention. And that just rarely ever happens. If I'm going to watch something, I'm going to watch it. And my goodness, whatever Fat Man is on this side of the scale, this is the complete opposite. This movie should not exist, but it does. I don't think it'll ever grow up to be one of those cult classics.
No,
there's just nothing redeemable about it.
So here's a question I have, because this is such a common theme for you. Do you feel like it is hashtag content, though?
No,
I actually don't.
No, this is not hashtag content. This is definitely a standalone, thought out.
This is somebody's vision.
This is somebody's vision, and
sure.
the same writer, same director, correct?
Yeah.
So doesn't really feel like it's being meddled with.
Yep.
But somebody needed to actually. This is a rare instance where somebody had been like, you know what? Maybe we don't need the giant wall holding back the sea in Miami. Why do we need it?
I don't know.
Especially
since Miami's already flooded.
We don't
really
need
help.
Like that serves literally no purpose for the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot in this movie so we were talking last week about suspension of disbelief, and we were talking about like how, at least I was talking about how important it is to set things up the right way, and then that kind of affects whether or not you suspend disbelief. So, okay, this movie, there's been some kind of global catastrophe. Miami is half underwater. First of all, America's pretty vast. Florida is vast, actually.
It's a big state.
It's a big state. There's a lot of room. And yet, for some reason, millions of people, apparently, still live in Miami in these same buildings instead of just, leaving. They've done nothing, as far as I can tell, to reinforce any of these buildings. So it's basically just a water-filled slum at this point. And yet there are clear signs of like robust commercial activity.
Right.
So, he is doing this, like the Reminiscence thing, and I don't know what you call his business exactly, but that seems like a pretty advanced. That's not a low end of the Maslow hierarchy of needs kind of job, right? This is not personal security or food. This is like at the very top end of that hierarchy of like personal fulfillment and entertainment and stuff like that. That's certainly available. There's, as we get little glimpses of his relationship, Hugh Jackman's relationship with Rebecca Ferguson's character, they go out on dates to restaurants and like walk through or take a boat through various markets and things like that. So it doesn't actually seem like it's trying to have it both ways in a lot of sense.
It's a dystopia.
It's a dystopia, real. Except that everybody is basically fine.
I mean,
except for rich people are bad, and rich people,
of course,
are not living in buildings where the ground floors are flooded. So rich people. I don't know. I'm supposed to hate rich people for some reason.
It's so hot, so the day is now nighttime?
Yeah, the day is now nighttime, except for all the times where Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson go out in the daytime.
Yeah, except that.
You're not supposed to go out in the daytime because it's too hot because of global warming, except for when you go out in the daytime, which is actually a good portion of the movie.
85% of it.
Probably like 85% of it.
And all of these people are remarkably tanned for never going out in time,
That's a good point, too. But see, I think the reality is they do go out in the daytime because, in fact, it's fine to go out in the daytime. At least that's the revealed preferences of the characters, as far as I can tell.
Well, yes.
Going out in the day is perfectly acceptable.
Gosh.
But, I mean, all this stuff, I think part of it for me, and then, Jen, I'd love to get your take on this in general, but it's just like a lot of this just feels wildly overcomplicated for reasons that are super unclear. Like I don't know why. Like there are a lot of choices that were made in the setting of the movie and in some of the character choices and all that kind of stuff too. But they're like, it's like trying to be more difficult and more challenging and more interesting than it actually is in any case. And it reminds me a little bit of, in Mythic Quest, where C.W. Longbottom's character, like when we do the flashback episode, backstory, where he is, in the room with these other sci-fi writers that are his same age and same experience, and he's got all of these ideas, like humans evolved a backpack pocket on their back or whatever, and all the the writers that he's hanging out with are like, well, I mean, yeah, you get to make up whatever future you want, but there should be like a clear reason for why the future is the way that it is. Like there should be something there that actually justifies your vision. This is one of those cases where I just feel like so much of the movie is not justified in that way. Like there's vision here, but it's like very surface level, and then if you scratch it at all, you find nothing supporting it whatsoever.
Just like the buildings.
Just like the buildings, which have no reinforcement and yet are completely submerged in water, as if a
not
skyscraper.
Just like a foot.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're talking about 100 feet of water. This is not like it's got a little bit of a wet spot on the lobby. It's like this is Anyway, Jen, I'd love your impressions.
You wanted us to watch this one.
Yes, this movie was my idea, and I am so sorry. I'm real sorry, y'all.
Look, I get it. You saw it looked very noir and kind of cool, and you thought Rebecca Ferguson, and you thought Hugh Jackman.
I think we got bamboozled.
A little bit.
We did. We got completely bamboozled. I feel so catfished by this movie. When you tell me, like prominently in your marketing, from the co-creator of Westworld, expect my mind messed with. Yep. My mind was never messed with here. Everything was up front. Everything was obvious.
But I feel like they tried, though, is the thing.
Nothing.
I feel like so much of the movie was trying to make you confused about the order of events, the chronology of everything.
Yeah, but they failed. Real
agreed.
Bad.
Agreed.
I was never confused about when is happening.
No, not one point in the movie was like, oh, I'm surprised by this, or wait, did that happen just now? But they did it a lot. They had a lot of these moments where it was and most of it surrounding the relationship between Rebecca Ferguson and Hugh Jackman, because that's sort of the idea. Is even right at the beginning of the movie, we're getting, Hugh Jackman having this sort of, romantic experience with Rebecca Ferguson's character. And then right off the bat, we reveal that he is in the tank, and he's actually just reviewing his own memories or whatever by himself. But even that wasn't a surprise. There was nothing about that was surprising. Part of that was just the marketing itself clued me into the fact that Hugh Jackman was
in the tank
and doing this to himself. But at the same time, I don't even think without the marketing, I don't think I would have been surprised by that at all.
There was never once in this movie where I was like, oh my goodness, what a shocking twist.
No. And yet the movie tried really hard for there to be a lot of twists.
Real hard. And they just whiffed.
Yeah, I don't...
This movie just...
Yeah, it's really weird to me, how much... And this movie in general, I would say... It looked like a big budget movie. It felt in a lot of ways like it was a big budget movie. It was not, I'll watch kind of low budget sci-fi from time to time, and obviously a lot of that is really bad. But there are good examples of this, right? We've talked about Ex Machina before. Much lower budget, great movie. I've been thinking a little bit about Archive because Jen and I are doing a short on artificial intelligence, and that's a pretty low budget movie, and yet still kind of works and is pretty interesting. and also you got a bunch of horror movies that are very low budget but actually work really well, like Color Out of Space and stuff like that. Very interesting effects-driven movies, but it all keeps coming back to the script. It keeps coming back to the story itself. And if you don't have that down, and this movie does not, then, it doesn't matter what your budget is. It doesn't matter if you've got $150 million or whatever to make something like this. And I don't know. I should look up what the actual budget of this movie was, but it doesn't feel cheap. No. Also, you've got Hugh Jackman in it, so probably it's not cheap.
No.
Just in general, but it doesn't work. So I don't know. I'm kind of baffled by this. Is one of these where I'm like, yeah, with Paul, like,
how
somebody should have stepped in a little bit, and maybe they did. I don't know, but
yeah. So I'm trying to think about. To be perfectly honest, I kind of put this movie out of my mind. It was so bad.
Oh, I did. Until we.
It also kind of infuriated me because of the backstory of the whole universe that it's telling us that is taking place in.
Would you guys like to know the box office take?
15 million.
Jen,
7.
take a guess. 10.8.
Yikes.
On a nearly $70 million budget. Oof.
Big oof.
That's rough.
Yep.
That's rough.
Yep.
That's pretty bad. So the lore of this world, this universe is just so bad, and Sean touched on it already, but you scratch just not even beneath the surface. You just dust it off a little bit, and you start to see the holes with the climate change.
Yeah.
Fine, climate change is in pretty much every other movie these days.
Yep.
Which is fine, but the way that they handled it is just so stupid. They treat these people like are just idiots.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense. The other one that was really just annoying.
Why does nobody realize that, like people, for example, if people's homes are flooded, they'll move. Like if you can't repair the home, you'll go to a different place.
Right.
Where it's not flooded. Presumably is the vast majority of the United States in this universe.
Don't bring your facts and logic into this movie, Sean.
Well, it's like they can't because rich people exist.
You expect them to move to Middle America?
Right? They have to continue living in Miami, even though Miami is not Miami anymore. It's not.
It's just Amy. Sorry. But the other part of this is the class warfare.
Yep.
Angle. As we've already touched on, this world doesn't seem to be. I mean, it's obviously dystopia. There's some bad things about it, but we're also dealing with drug dealers and crime.
Yeah.
It's not
we're in the underworld of the universe.
We're not. This is not the normal day-to-day what people experience. But for some reason, because they just felt like they needed to force it in here, class warfare is a big topic. And I laughed out loud at this at the end of the movie. Hugh Jackman is walking slowly through the riot after he proved the billionaire baron murdered somebody. Yeah. And then it's like these people were bent up for far too long.
Yeah.
I'm like, the dude everyone's getting their justice. Those people are going to prison. What are they writing about?
Well, I don't. That also felt really tacked on to me. Oh. Like that felt like they had the movie and it was done pretty much, and then they were like, "Ooh, what can we do that's very 2020?" And we're gonna bring in like a riot sequence or whatever.
Sweet.
And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this gets into a lot of this, like a lot of the class warfare stuff in. I mean, we see this in science fiction constantly, but I mean, it's, let's compare this to like Elysium or something like that, because that's a pretty good parallel in this case, which is like poor people live in the waterlogged skyscrapers, even though they're not living in water, like they're just living in, apartments, whatever. And then the rich people get like country club living and, sort of like they get a whatever, they have estates. And it's just like, you see this all the time. And I wonder, like, at what point we will kind of look at this and say, like, poor people aren't invalids, first of all. And secondly, like, it's not like the economic conditions have changed slightly for this. Well, not slightly, in a big way for Miami, at least. But that doesn't mean that people are just stuck exactly where they are. It just means that they have to adapt along with it, which in the real world, people do all the time. So it's just such a strange way to look at the world and strange way to look at people. Like, people are just completely incompetent to modify their behavior or their living situation or how they work or all that kind of stuff, when in fact, like, people are constantly adapting to new conditions constantly. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the fact that, like, when disasters happen like this, people tend to, like, sort the problems out relatively quickly. As long as they're, relatively free to do so, they will get into it pretty quickly. But I don't know. Miami's been like this for years, apparently, for,
Just the way of life.
Just the way it is, and nobody cared to do anything about it. I don't know.
But they built a wall for reasons I still don't understand.
Oh, they had all the money in the world to build a giant wall, which does something. I'm not really sure what it does.
Holds the water back from what? I don't know.
From getting back out into the ocean?
I have no idea.
Unclear. I mean, again, this gets to the point of, like, there are all these things that are meant to sort of complicate this movie and sort of add depth or texture to the universe that we're in, except for, like, none of them actually make sense. Like, the decisions that people are making don't make any sense. And then, of course, like Hugh Jackman is the worst offender in all of this, which is, like, he's known Rebecca Ferguson in the movie, as far as I can tell. Basically only knows her for a couple months, and he doesn't really get to know much about her. And then it turns out that she ends up being somebody who was actually trying to scam him. And sorry, I'm going to spoil this, but who cares at this point? Basically, like, she is running a con on him on behalf of somebody else, and yet she redeems herself somehow at the end of the movie, which is also weird. Like, all of that is weird. But Hugh Jackman is, like, super obsessed with her for somebody that he's barely known and for somebody that he didn't know for very long and then who disappeared 5-6 years ago or whatever. It just... But the movie also doesn't I mean, Tandy Newton's character, does harp on him a little bit for being, like, obsessed with her when he shouldn't be. But it just... I don't know. He's just not a very interesting or very compelling character. And his decisions are, like, not very relatable to me, because it's just, why are you still hung up on this when you didn't really have a relationship? Like, you had barely a relationship. You went on a couple dates, basically. And that's about all we get from it. And worse, because of the nature of how the information is revealed in the story, it's already been revealed to us that she is not what she appears to be, and that she's probably more of a nefarious character in the story. So by the time we start seeing them on dates, the context of it is very different. If they had started with the dates and we had started with, like, a sequence of them, like an Up style 8 minutes at the beginning of the movie with them building a romantic relationship that was really meaningful, and then one day he wakes up and she's gone, and then flash forward to 5 years later and he's still trying to find her, I would care. I would care about that. Like, I would care where she is, what happened to her, all of that stuff. But instead, at the very beginning of the movie, I already know she's gone, so that's not a mystery or a surprise, and we already have enough information to sort of determine that there's something suspicious about her before we get a few snippets of them having dates. So none of that is developed well enough for me to actually care about him finding her, which is the central premise of the entire plot. It just fails for me. And I don't know. I mean, Jen, I know you had thoughts on their relationship aspect of this too, so.
This is like the epitome of the worst romance tropes like ever. Okay, so in a lot of fiction, it seems that all you need for a successful relationship is two very attractive people. And so long as you have attraction and like physical passion between two people, that is the hallmark of a successful relationship.
Yeah.
Just completely glossing over all of the times when you're like elsewhere with each other, which is, let's be honest, most of a relationship.
Yep. No, I mean, it's just not
I
developed.
just, it is so infuriating to me that people are like, yeah, it's just, it's just attraction, right? You need that fire in the belly or whatever. And nope, there's a lot more to a successful relationship, to a meaningful relationship
Yeah.
than just attraction.
That's what everybody says on Love Island as well. Then they go out and do the exact opposite. He's like, I want personality.
I want personality.
Next second, somebody else walks in. Well, that personality.
Well, so I'm going to go out on a limb
Personality.
here and say the relationships that get formed on Love Island, maybe not the strongest.
There's been at least one marriage.
That's
with
lasted
kids.
more than a
Yeah.
year. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
from Love Island.
Yeah. Yeah. It's better. Like these people have a better shot if you actually want to find a long-term relationship than anybody on The Bachelor or Bachelorette. It's a much better environment as far as reality TV goes to find actual relationships.
What about Nikki Glasser's show of which the name I can't even talk about?
Blank Boy Island.
Blank Boy Island.
We got through half the episode.
Yeah, you actually watched some of it.
And so that premise of that show, you have 3 women, and then the rest are 24 men who half of them said they're just here for fun. The other half are like, I want a relationship. So okay, great concept. I'm in. I mean, I would be in anyways, but I'm in. So you have to have 3 women that you are rooting for.
Yeah.
They picked the worst, the most superficial, just like, you have to have them. You have to root for them. That's the only way this show works. And they just swing and a miss. And we got about 35 minutes in, and we're like, no, like this, no.
Well, that is the level of relationship I feel like was developed in Reminiscence. So
I would have
about that superficial.
I would have stopped roughly the same time period if we didn't have to talk
But
about it.
part of it is that like Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson's characters do not ever, as far as I recall, they don't ever occupy the same space in the present at any point in the movie, right? They never actually interact in the present. They can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is just my point.
Yeah.
It's just that like every single sequence with them together is a flashback. There's not one moment of like current meaningful interaction between the two of them, which just really hurts the ability of that movie to, I mean, there's so many things that hurt the ability of that movie to like actually make me connect with anyone. But that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Just all feels so contrived to me. So,
Yeah,
all right. No, go on, Jen.
There was
Sorry.
just so much of this movie that happened because that's what the script said.
Yeah.
Like, it was just, well, that's the next plot beat, so that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like, I mean, there's a couple things that we would talk about, like if we were talking about it in terms of philosophy and stuff, but like, even that is so thin. You know, I mean, like, okay, using memory as an interrogation technique, I buy that. If that was possible, if it was possible for the government to look at people's memories like in a technological way where you just see everything, I think they would 100% do that. I don't know.
Hugh Jackman,
Yeah.
they called it burning someone when you left him in a memory.
Oh boy, yeah.
And he he took the bad guy, the guy who got burnt, and he basically made him relive his worst moment of his life, and then basically killed him,
tortured him
to death, left the room, and went to go tell his partner Tandy Newton what he did, and well, you know what? Since he's a good guy, he got a deal because he helped bring down the rich people.
I know that was like shocking to me. Like we talked on the show a bunch about writers not understanding the difference between heroic characters, heroic actions, good guys and bad guys. And like one thing that a good guy should literally never do is probably torture someone to death. Probably not we're talking violation of the Geneva Convention, war crime level action.
He walks free.
And that's fine. He literally, because he's mad. And that's it. So, wow. Yeah, that was like, I watched that. I'm like, what?
All right, cool.
What is happening? But, yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this movie. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about?
It's not good. Just like, I don't even know why this movie. Why is this movie?
Why?
I don't know.
This is a really weird one because it is an attempt. It does feel like an attempt at an original idea.
Great. But it's bad.
Oh, it's bad.
Excellent. Yeah. It's terrible. So this is on the Max. This is a biggest swing and a miss for the Max, which is surprising. But I would second what Jen said. Just don't watch literally anything. Watch Space Jam 2 before you watch this.
Also on the Max.
Also on the Max. Oh gosh, another whiff. But watch literally anything else. Even Blank Boy Island, which is also on the Max. Watch that instead.
Yeah, I got to agree.
Or just turn it off and go to bed. Like, get a good night's sleep instead of watching this movie.
Go for a walk.
Go for a walk.
Spend time with your family.
Get a dog. Hang out with your dog.
Eat a Hot Pocket. Literally anything else.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think we'll end it here on that. I just, it's feeling like a short episode on this, but like I just don't have anything else to say with respect to this movie because it doesn't deserve the attention at this point. So there we are, everybody. Reminiscence. Hard no.
I hope I never remember this movie.
I hope I never remember this. Yeah, well, this is a unanimous hard no from all of us.
I think this is the hardest of no's.
And on that note, if you are a supporter of Out of Frame on Patreon or Subscribe Star, stick around, and we are going to continue with a bonus section where we're going to talk about things that are not related to this movie. And for everybody else, please consider supporting the show. Patreon.com/OutOfFrameShow, SubscribeStar.com/OutOfFrameShow. Definitely follow us on YouTube, of course, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, the whole thing. Join our email list. Just do all the things. And we totally appreciate all of your support, regardless of anything else. And thank you for listening or watching, however you're consuming the podcast. We will see you next time.